welcome back to FNCS. If you've just joined us, unfortunately you missed a banging game one, but don't worry, we've still got 4 more to come your way. And Janice and Cheating picked up the first victory royale, which means they have already qualified for the Major 1 final. So if you're fans of the guys, you won't see them again tonight, but you will see them next weekend. Now let's talk about another German player, because Reason and Noah Riley, Takata, based on the eye test from that first game, are you feeling like Reason's now found his perfect Euro match?
It's a good question, and it's an interesting one, because, I mean, Reason in 2024, they were the best German duo, reached the deal, 7th, 4th, 5th in the majors. Starting this year, didn't quite work out. Ever since then, Reason's been switching up players, trying to find his perfect match, ended up with Noah for the play-ins, and now, you know, they're off to a pretty solid start. They had height for a little bit. They couldn't quite close it out, but overall, I'm actually quite happy with it, how it started off, Minnie.
Yeah, not bad at all from these guys, you know, sitting in a decent spot on the leaderboard so far. It could have gone even better, to be honest, for this team. They seem to have all the ingredients there. They just couldn't quite find a refresh at the crucial time. You can see it right there, only 2 eliminations on Reason and no builds for him at the end. So just couldn't quite stay cohesive, and that's something that you can see at this level of Fortnite when there's so many good teams in the lobby. You have to stick together and try and find those refreshes, and sometimes, like we saw there, they can get a little bit split and try and make those solo plays. Unfortunately, that was their demise right there, but it was still a very solid performance from them. Puts them in 9th place. Of course, not ideal for them. They want to be winning the games, but they're in a decent spot.
Millie, very quickly, just a thought. Are some of the players so focused on net surge that they're going out to do all the damage they can and they're not really thinking about the refreshes enough at the moment?
Well, it can be difficult with net surge because as much as previously you could sort of be done with your surge and sort of leave it for the rest of the game, you have to keep it on the forefront of your mind now that it's net surge. That number can change so quickly. So I think it's definitely going to be on their minds. But then when you go into these sort of late game rotations, late game zones, the main focus for them is just going to be trying to find those materials, trying to find those plays together. Didn't quite work out for them. They made a really nice sort of dead side rotation, rotating all the way around the storm, which didn't work out, but still not a bad performance.
And it wasn't a bad performance either from Swizzy and Pixie. Great. Obviously, we were expecting them to be great, but they were definitely trying to do what they do best, which is control that end game, and they nearly got away with it, Minimana.
Yeah, they were on second high, weren't they, when Yanis and the Cheating were on high, and they also did an overdrive grenade at the exact same time. They seem to play it really well. I was watching them, I was thinking, yeah, I think this is going to be a Swizzy Pixie first game win. They were looking solid, they were playing low ground really nicely, finding eliminations, and I think it was Swizzy, just a little bit of a misplay, I think, here, when someone drops in on him. I think it was around this moment, oh no, a little bit later on, but they made some really nice duo plays to actually find some eliminations. But as I mentioned, with those shots, I mean, moments like that, Takata, that's exactly what they're all about. And it's actually this right here. Drops in Cheatin, but actually just almost drops in behind him, so it's like you couldn't really get the angle, couldn't switch around quickly enough, and ultimately that left them down to a solo for Pixie. Again, really not ideal, but not a bad start for these guys, who we had a lot of questions for at the beginning of the day.
No, 100%. I mean, Swizzy Pixie have been playing together since the start of the year, so they haven't been switching up teams like a lot of the other duos competing today. And I mean, Swizzy coming from being a global champion, the expectations were high. Both of his, teammates from the trio haven't made it, but hopefully in last chance they can make something happen. Either way, I mean, seeing that they have a very strong drop spot, some of the performances in the first 2 Div Cups of this season weren't quite up to expectations, so I'm glad to see them doing well in FNCS.
Let's take another look at the leaderboard. Just a reminder for everyone watching, now that we switched back to Duos tonight, we're looking at the 10 Duos who are going to qualify on consistency, and then the 5 Duos who are going to qualify with a victory royale, or as I always call it, a golden ticket. So right now, the only Duos who have done that is Cheatin and Yanis, but there are 4 more up for grabs in our remaining games. Datapuzo and Werex. Obviously, this is a team we've seen a lot in major finals, but are you surprised, Takata, that they set their stall out so early and dominated the high ground?
A little bit. I mean, they're also another team that's kind of on the middle end of the leaderboard in these set lobbies. They got like 14th, 15th-ish in the recent Div Cups, but I didn't really see them as like a game 1 winner type of team. They do have a pretty good drop spot on contested, and I mean, so far, with the way they're playing, I would not be surprised if we see them qual for consistency, but with the aggression towards height, a win would be even more enjoyable.
Yeah, they kind of took advantage of that Yanis and Swizzy duo sort of thought, hang on a sec, it's 10th zone, nobody's on height, why not go up for it ourselves? And I think that's where they really found a lot of success. Ultimately, it'd be interesting to sort of know where they actually ended up falling down. A lot of the time with those sort of height plays, you're not really in a position to look at height. You sort of found yourself in a position where, oh, we can take it, but maybe it wasn't part of our plans. So for them, they probably weren't set up for height. They probably didn't have all the materials that they needed and ultimately ended up crumbling away. But a second place on the overall standings for them is really solid so far. They can be really happy with that start. And of course, remember from yesterday, you can qualify through consistency in that top 15 overall on the leaderboard, so it's very doable.
I'm curious what you think about Wox and Vanya in that game, Mini Minor, because you guys were talking impressively through the strat that they've established, and that normally involves a launch pad rotate, but the zone was so close to them that they didn't actually have to go forward with their normal strat. And I'm wondering if that impacted them.
Yeah, the earlier zone was playing a little bit more north than what that strat would really account for, so they didn't need to do it, really, and they actually found some really nice surge early on. Ultimately, it was that mid-game fight where we lost at Wox at that point where it left Vanya for a solo clutch. Those are the sort of situations that historically you think about Vanya, you think he's going to just go on and win the game. That's the sort of thing he does, but couldn't quite find it there.
Oh, he still managed to clutch through a couple of zones to get them within qualification. Remember, we're looking at the top 15 tonight, but can they stay there and hopefully make it on to page one? Let's head over to 11-2K and Taco to get on with game number 2.
Well, Frankie, there's a couple things I am pretty sure we're going to continue to see. We're going to continue to see clutching. We're going to continue to see big fragging moments. We're going to continue to see hype being thrown back and forth between multiple different teams. They tackle that first game was a great taste of what this heat has to offer.
Yeah, we kind of got a little bit of everything. We saw great instances of height retakes trying to be attempted. We saw height get held, but I love when you see the effective measures coming from the low ground, because you would anticipate that so many teams, it might be a little bit more scuffed, but no one is giving up by any means. It doesn't matter what they're working with down in the dirt or way up above. Everyone's trying to make it happen.
Absolutely, and I think one of the biggest things I'll be interested in this first game is how do people bounce back from their off-spawn troubles? We don't have to wait long to find out. Game number 2 starts now.
Waiting to see Squibbly show. Okay, man, because we know game 1, Tayson Ghost did not get off to the best of starts, but this is that bounce back that you're hoping for.
Absolutely. I was curious, and I went to social media to quickly check if Tayson had said anything, and he did, as most people probably expected, and so we'll see whether or not, you know, the talk is cheap. Will they be able to bounce back in this off spawn? Shaky, I don't think they will, Taco.
It is determined that they are not going to be participating in game 2. But now this kind of shifts things, right? Because you're headed into match number 3. You have no points, so the consistency element becomes a problem, and they're not the only team that has to worry about it either, with Savage being taken out. Velo going to be sent running, and Velo, he might be able to farm just enough materials to cover for Mr. Savage, but no, not being given the chance. Just 2 separate angles, picking him apart. Velo nearly pulling it off, though. The response onto Masters, but it's just not enough. They've also been taken out of this lobby. Some big favorites, no longer participants.
This is looking bad. It feels like any veteran EU player right now, the new young guns are coming for you. You know, you gotta hide. Again, you were talking about it when it comes to Tayson and Ghost, and this is now going to be a thing for Mr. Savage and Velo as things continue. Is again, when you have games like this where you get wiped out, the consistency element, again, it starts to maybe become out of reach. You have to start thinking, how do we just win a game and convert on what we have? That extra bit of pressure. Not everybody can handle that tackle. I think we've learned that over the years here in competitive Fortnite.
For sure. And I mean, I even draw back to that circumstance that Minnie had kind of highlighted earlier on the pre-show with, like, you know, instances of like Marius going for the solo clutch, finding the victory royales. And I do think that it is important for players to, you know, not lose heart. And I think that some of these experienced veterans, you know, they've definitely, it's not their first walk around the block, right? So they'll have opportunities, but it's about seizing them in the moment, and that's where it becomes really difficult.
Well, you're right. It's not their first time. Usually when I do something 25 times, I eventually become decent at it. So I'd like to think the same for these guys.
This girl just trying to buy whatever time he can, but almost like a delaying of the inevitable here. Pretty concise fight taking place deep southeast of the map. Marufka would be probably feeling pretty good though by getting those couple of eliminations. They've got the means to recover their HP along the way, but still have a little bit of work before they're going to be able to find themselves in a more cemented position in this lobby.
We started off last game seeing people go for sneaky plays and completely flop. And so hopefully Clement and Floki, it's good to see these two back together. We talk about veterans playing with new stars. Two legendary French Fortnite players playing together still here in the year 2026 and making things work. A nice way to open up this fight here at the Sanctuary and give themselves control of this underground part of the POI.
I'm right there with you though. I think Clement and Floki, they almost remind me of like duos that you expect to see together, right? Mixon and Blaha for a long time was one for me. But
Sure.
we gotta lock in on what Farhala and Machek are getting up to right now. Srat, Jewel, they don't seem to have any inkling of an idea of what's going on here, just waiting from behind, but the tags just aren't enough. Just more like a love tap than anything else, and Farhala and Machek, they'll be forced to just sit things out now.
It's not looking good for our failed lurk counter. I think we're up to 3 now at this point, and it feels like Strap is actually taking this one personally. He said, oh, you guys want to come fight us? Let's fight face to face. You don't want that smoke, and they're showing that now. Bachawa goes down, then Jewel and Strapped. Looks like they're going to close this one out. You can see it again, attacking from both sides, and that will be the end of that. Quick turnaround.
Couldn't help but notice that mythic pump as well for Jewel there, so they'll also have those additional goodies that Farhala and Machek were able to provide, but teams are getting dropped and put into those facing behind Ken, and I don't know if this is exactly what they're waiting for, but Matez, yeah, sure enough, they're just gonna fall back here, realizing the juice isn't really worth the squeeze at this point. Frigid Fortress. Still heating up though. Keld and Collapsy, they had a good amount of success in the last lobby, but they've got to make sure that they keep the ball rolling with this one.
Yeah, a bit of a rematch from the last game, and one that you could say is a bit more on even footing, right? When we saw Nazix look to take this fight before, they were just playing into Clapsy and Keld's hands. They had every advantage when it came to positioning, when it came to just the timing, HP, the amount of builds they had, and it looks like when both teams are on a bit more even footing, it isn't the same outcome just yet. I'm sure we'll continue to see those guys bump heads throughout the rest of this game.
Definitely feels like one of those off-spawn instances where you're never going to expect both teams to kind of depart the POI. At least one fight is going to have to determine it every single time, because I just don't see a world where they can coexist. You know, sometimes teams will choose to split things, but it doesn't look like either of them are interested in that.
And I don't blame them. I do. Game, go land somewhere else. Leave the spot to us. Khan and Faded. We talked about the potential they had, obviously. Very impressive in the Reload Elite series that took place a month or two ago. Can that translate into Major 1 here?
Hey, they've already got one land locked in with DWC, and now they're hoping that through the Major 1 finals that they're able to punch their seats on the battle bus. from this secondary heat, and that raises their opportunity to potentially be one of those top 20 teams in the Major 1 finals to head on over to Dusseldorf. But they've got to make sure that they can win their battles. They find themselves a little bit of slight stalemate, but it's a war of attrition here. On and faded, likely in a driver's seat here.
Yeah, and look, when you look at the fight they're taking, I think it was the analyst who mentioned them being coached by Teeny and Shark today. And bits. Used to seeing them close out the fights maybe, but still time to do it. They're going to continue to chase them down. They know exactly where they are, Taco.
Bit of an escape artist there.
What does he?
Had no idea. Just like that, Khan's gonna have to take a moment to pause here. Faded, thought that he was going to get a return shot, but instead, Warren just continuing to push back. Finally, Khan will be able to finish what they started, but that's just one half of the puzzle. They still need to deal with Luka at some point, but for right now, at least Khan and Fade are able to come out with one elimination there.
You've got to be more vigilant than that. You see the mist there. There's no player to be found. At least check where the mist was, right? Like, at least look at the tree stuff. And they take a bit too much damage there. That's going to cost them in the long run when it comes to keeping their net surge in check. My, oh my. Look, these things happen. We'll give them the benefit of their doubt. They're still warming into this lobby.
Lobby shakes might play a part. I mean, all these teams had the opportunity to kind of witness what was taking place throughout yesterday's matches. And so, do you think that that would help settle their nerves a bit heading into today's competition?
Yeah, I think that plays a part. I think, you know, anyone that plays Fortnite tournaments knows, you know, there's different types of players. There's players who, you know, they don't even need the warm-up, jump straight into game one, they're feeling it. There's others who almost get a bit fatigued by the end of the tournament and start to play worse. I'm definitely the first type, you know. Get me in the first couple games, I'm primed, shots are flying. By the end of the tournament, just hope my teammates doing enough to keep us in it.
Callum just trying to stay in this one. Cold and Peshka, though, just applying so much steady, consistent pressure, and they will be able to seal the deal here. Callum has been eliminated, so now Cold, Peshka, got a ways to go, though, from Battlewood Boulevard.
Great shot, right? It was a tight window to hit it, but connected fully, and of course with this shotgun, you're always going to be hitting big. So now they'll be able to move on out of Battlewood. We obviously saw a lot more scrapping in Battlewood in that first game. Bit less busy here in game two.
Also just coming to more concise conclusions as well. Clement, Loki, though. Another team sort of trying to possibly take over their position here at New Sanctuary, but Clement a little bit more preoccupied with trying to keep tabs on where Fieldball is actually moving through. This could be a great opportunity to try and get some additional surge damage, but when you're already sitting at 737 above the threshold, you're not feeling too pressed about finding those extra tags.
I think the key thing for these guys is, again, it's just they understand their opponent is weakened, right? And so you know it's a solo lurking about somewhere. And so you're going to try and play for it, especially because the latter of the situation means you might get shot in the back. So they'll be patient. Can't afford to be too slow here. There is that team beneath them. Clement will be aware. You'll see the footsteps lurking about.
Not only that, but I'd imagine that Clement and Floki would probably want to retake over that control of the vending machines too, because it does just give them better opportunity to kind of sit things out in Storm. Having to worry about those later rotations. Clapsy, though, failed lurk. Does that count as a failed lurk number 4 if you're just spotted by somebody else entirely?
Yeah, we're adding that to the list. Put that one on the counter.
That is a tough pill to swallow, though, for Clapsy and Kel there. I think that they may have been relatively successful otherwise, but Spexum Miruz still under a little bit of duress here. Clapsy, his cover's already been blown. He's 498 below on Surge, so he doesn't have a choice. He's going to have to get active. tags. They don't have the heals to work with to try and deal with both the surge tags and the lobby pressure. You don't want to have to use everything at your disposal just to survive these surge tags, essentially. So they need to find a way in where Mirus and Specs are located.
And Mirus and Specs are playing that really well, right? They know this team's desperate for surge. Don't allow them to get a pinch. Don't allow them to isolate a 1v1 or a 2v1. And so both of them staying in the same box, holding both of the players off from the same angle. And again, it just leaves these guys in the exact same position, even a worse position now. And ultimately, the next time around they decide to try and force the fight, it's going to just be an even better setup for Mirus to try and capitalize. And so, really well played from those two.
We're also
don't like what I'm
witnessing...
seeing on the second side of the screen, though. Yeah, this doesn't look too good.
Just two separate players dealing with their own battles here. Pixie as a solo, though, in comparison to Clapsy and Killed, but 82 below. So he's got those two pizzas to work with and can maybe look to find some tags from the players trickling in. Killed actually going to be one of the first ones in his sights, but he's just not able to connect just yet. Still sitting 67, now 59 below. There is a chance that the lobby might just bail him out, but you'd rather have your own fate under your own control here, Levin.
Yeah, I think that's the problem we saw a lot in Game 1, and we're seeing it here in Game 2 as well. A lot of people just don't have this faith. Clapsy, at a certain point, brother, the lurk plays just ain't paying off for you. Like, we gotta switch it up, my friend. We gotta just jump straight in the box. None of this lurking stuff. Everybody's spotting you out. And again, they're gonna continue to use up the pizza here. But this time is just time wasted, right? And so, at a certain point, that number's getting too big to overcome, Taka. I don't know how they're getting out from 800 below. This, yeah.
Hear me out. 7 eliminations right now. Clapsy goes ballistic. But no, realistically, I think Pixie's got the best opportunities, still sitting 79 below, gets some damage, but also takes him in return. But now this is where Pixie can go nuclear, finds one, finds 2 eliminations, and that is going to be his bailout, but he's still just sitting 22 above, and because he has to heal, he doesn't get the chance to actually take more shots towards teams rotating elsewhere. But Clapsy, I mean, he tried to be the hero, and instead it just turns completely 180 there for Clapsy and Kill.
Yeah, Pixie does well there to hold his nerve when both players are running at you from 2 different sides. Unfortunately, just took a bit too much damage there to the burst SMG. There's not really much you can do when you're holding on like that. But again, it'll keep him ticking just above. A better situation than what Dan DePuzzo's in. What is going on? All of our Game 1 best players, it feels like they're all struggling here. It's not illegal, guys, to have 2 good games in a row. Dan DePuzzo is a solo. Again, this doesn't look like a game we're going to see them soaring in the skies on height. And so we'll see what you can make of it as a solo. Clutching up points now will be good for them as far as consistency goes if you can continue to stay in it.
At this point, Ghosty and Glove, they might have the best opportunity here to just get some additional shots, kind of control what's taking place on these low ground tiers. But Dan DePuzzo trying to cut off instead, he will be dropped. So many individual plays being made, though, by some of these solos. Because now teams, they are beginning to drop like flies. The way that the zone is pulling and some of the shifting elevation, it's just enough for players to be getting caught out, basically, on some of these rotates. Wax and Vanya, on the other hand, though, 225 above, it's not the highest, but they're still in a much better position than the rest of the lobby, and they're going to immediately try to take over front side. Slightly elevated here, too, so this is prime opportunity to strike and start looking back, getting some additional damage in.
Absolutely. In that first game, this time around, he's going to need to rely on Wax there to potentially get them a refresh. The materials are starting to look a bit on the lower side. And so if they can find one of these players who's fumbling around low on surge, it will set them up to potentially sneak out of this lobby altogether in Game 2. Kolb and Peshkov looked good so far, but they need to hold off from Kantry and Drew. These guys desperate to try and keep themselves above surge, just below now, and burning through materials trying to stay in the safe zone.
It's crazy to think how quickly the lobby just begins to lock in on a target. But sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And for Ju and Condry, they've done just enough. 90 above now. Big tags on Taquito is only going to raise that even further still. And now they'll be able to use that overdrive grenade forward. But Seti, Rax, we wanted to see some good things from this duo, and we're finding it right now onto Shumage. Great elimination there for Seti. Let's continue.
Training there, right? He was just sat in there. I'm sure everyone wants to copy that scenario in creative. We'll see whether or not, though, that aim's going to continue to shine through. Pixie, we know the struggles you're going to have as a solo in this game with nothing but wood left and not much as far as healing goes. It's going to come down to one thing we know Pixie is very good with, and that is his shotgun. Can he jump in a box? Sees the opportunity, goes for the edit, players spraying through. Can't quite find it.
Right of being in those wood builds. Another duo immediately recognizes the fact that this is a weakened solo, so they took their advantage where they could, and that's going to lead to a missed opportunity here. But no, Riley, Reason on low ground one more time. Just trying to pan around, head on a swivel type behavior. Just off east of them, Clemento, bit isolated. No Riley Reason, they're still taking their time. They're playing through the backside. They're looking for some of these injured players, and they're going to find Rax on the rotate. That is a nice little pickup if they can make it for those siphon materials, because they're going to need it.
Yeah, and they're coming off the back of that 6th place in game 1. They're going to have to find something to keep them ticking in this one. Both of these players, we've seen them in situations like this before in their careers. And the one thing we can say is you never count them out. They're always going to find the opening. Reason trying to jump in the boxes, no one goes down. He's been here before. Can he find that window of opportunity and slide right through it? He can't. Pixie, though, is looking to do the same as we have mates up on top. This is going to be a very close finish for all these duos down below as we move towards the edge of this cliff.
But mates, he's not exactly the most healthy solo either. Pixie still lurking in the underbelly of this lobby, just waiting to see if he can get a pre-edit or something. Doesn't matter if it's a duo or a solo, it's just going to be whatever the next player is that happens to run across his screen. But Pixie here realizes there's no one close enough. He's going to have to just keep things moving forward. He doesn't have any sort of white heals, so he can't really afford to tank up any of these storm takes. Run straight into the hands of another individual, but he's not going to be able to get the shots. He can't get the siphon. He's trying. 6 HP. He needs a shot now or never. Doesn't have the choice to choose. He's going to connect, but it's not a knock. He's going to just have to keep mantling overhead. The fact that he hasn't been taken out, and finally he will fall. A great attempt, but just not enough damage here. And mates drop from height. No materials left over. It's going to be the Mont Blancs. Head straight for high ground.
Yeah, they were setting up to take it. But I'm not too sure why these guys don't have the materials to hold on. They're just going to try and use their utility to hit some shots, and shots they'll need to hit. Scary and Sayas, they're looking to take their claim, but they also don't have the materials to hold on. Everybody in this lobby has to rely on just their aim and their shotguns to try and connect. Scary will finally pick up a siphon that will give him enough to continue to just hold on here and give themselves a second to heal.
This could be a huge moment for the Spaniards, but you can't count out the rest of the lobby. Ghosty and Glub trying to play things through, still working in these lower tiers, but ultimate low is not safe. You have to anticipate that there's going to be somebody lurking on the other side of these walls eventually. They continue to try to pickaxe their way through, keeping things moving forward. A little bit of a bailout there for Ghosties. He finds some scattered material, but Scary with another elimination on the high ground. That might just be enough. The HP refresh. Saya's going to send himself backwards out of the overdrive grenade. Maybe not his direction intention, but Ghosty and Glub. It is a 2v2 outright affair here. Glub, Ghosty from low. One build left. Scary and Ciaz, they can taste it. They can see the victory royale in the finish, but they need to close out. They have to do this for their own country representation. Scary gonna send themselves up. Ghosty and Glub still underneath, just waiting. They've got no materials left. It is going to come down to the aim trainer. Finally, Saya is gonna get some shots. Glub will be knocked. One more left to play, and the Spanish have done it. Saya's and Scary Sean, welcome welcome to the Major 1 Grand Finals.
What a finish for the Spaniards. You said it yourself. They were in the prime position, and it was just about the execution, which they perfected. A great win for this duo, and a duo that many people will have to watch out for and keep them on your radar. What a second game for this team. They take the hype, and they do it in style. Back to the desk to break that one all down.
Well, first of all, before we break that victory down, to Carter, how do you feel to have Spanish?
You should have seen the smile on my face when they were in those final moments. I mean, these heats overall has had some of the most Spanish representation we've seen in a long time, and Scary Ciaz being one of the first, if not the first, to qualify themselves now to the finals. It's what you love to see. Vamos, Scary Ciaz. I'm excited to see how they perform in the actual major finals.
Yeah, it was really nicely played as well. I mean, the way that they were on high, the way that they had the patience there at the end just to close out those fights. It can be really, really tempting when you're a team on high, particularly if you're a slightly inexperienced team. I mean, Ciaz hasn't actually made an FNCS major final yet. It can be really, really tempting just to drop on down, just to try and make those plays yourself. But the way that they went about this endgame here, Takata, look at this. Just, you know, they kept their composure, they kept their persistence, and they stayed up on high. Glub and Ghosty did a fantastic job as well. It must be said, just to hold on. But when you've got that higher angle, you can always easily close out the game. And that's exactly what they did. This moment right here, just staying patient, not jumping in. Really well played from them.
Is it a bit tragic for those guys, though, the mini-miner, that they ran out of builds? They just were not able to defend themselves as that zone pulled?
Yeah, it was always difficult when you're on low and, you know, the zone pulls further away. You don't have the bills to do it, so unfortunate for them, but they'll be back, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure they will, because we've got 3 more games to go, so let's go to a break, and then hopefully we'll be back in the lobby before you know it. do you say congratulations in Spanish?
Felicidades.
Felicidades.
Não sei, só tô na TV.
Because they were our game 2 winners. They've already made it to the major one finals. Why are you giggling? It's not like I tried. Wasn't that bad? Okay, vamos. Let's move swiftly on. Let's talk instead about Pixie, because Swizzy went down in the mid game, and for any other duo, you'd be worrying. But Pixie is so insanely OP at this game that he can get himself seemingly out of every situation, Mini Miner.
Tá bom, pai, só deixa eu terminar isso.
Because you saw Clapsy and his teammate needing Surge. Pixie also needed a little bit of Surge at this point. It's kind of the ideal situation, you think, for Clapsy. Another team that needs Surge, a solo. What are we going to do? We should easily eliminate Pixie 1v2, but no. Pixie hits the 1v2, and this was unbelievable. That shot with the Chaos reload of the first one, the body shot was unreal. And then Takasa finding the second in the end game then, absolutely popping off. We were in the back, we were sort of like going crazy because he just kept staying alive despite all the odds, and he was just so consistent here.
Yeah, disgusting in the best way possible. I mean, I'm not nothing against Swizzy, but he went down incredibly early, and Pixie just somehow, before that endgame even started, clutched all the way up to that top 8. It's what you love to see.
And I think it's something that we were... Sorry, I mean, we were speaking about it at the beginning of the day, and we were saying, you know, we have a few questions about these guys. How are they going to do whilst uncontested? And realistically, in this sort of lobby, just the quality of individual that both of those players have in this team, we should have expected them to be making those solo clutches breezing through, because that's what they're doing right now. And even in that last game, we saw them on low ground, a little bit messy. Even when the game's not perfect for them, they're still finding ways to make it work.
I think we always focus, understandably, on the fact that Swizzy is a global champion, but Pixie literally came second and is so known for picking up victory royales on LAN. So offline, online, I should say, this should all be a cakewalk for him. So we'll see more from them, I'm sure. But looking at page 2 of the standings, remember, number 15, that is the cutoff. Shocking to see Wox and Vanya there at the moment. We still do have 3 games to go. And Ghosty and Glub in that last endgame to Carter, holding on, controlling that low ground, despite the fact that they knew that they were running out of builds.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. We talked about the EU Legends. This is more a newer duo, and they did get second place, but they're also contesting another 2 duos off spawn. One of them you might know, Mr. Savage and Velo. So it's a rough early game for this team. You can tell from the first match they had, they ended up going down in 39th place. But once they made it past that early game, they actually got the nice second place finish, 3 eliminations. So I'm curious to see how this is going to go moving forward. Are they going to maybe play a little less aggressive in that triple con early game, or are they just going to continue?
Looking back, it looks like they've actually switched up the drop spot, so they're sort of landing more towards the south side of the map now, so hopefully that's actually going to help them in their pursuit of actually qualifying here. Both of them haven't made a major final before either, so huge moments for them. We can't get too ahead of ourselves here. Of course, they would have liked to have won the game. Realistically, that's their best chance of getting through here because of their inexperience, but maybe they can prove us wrong here and keep... situation probably not going to work out for them.
A duo that we can probably safely say is underperforming to our expectations right now is Wox and Vanya. We just saw they're in 15th place on the leaderboard. To Carter, have we got any clues as to why things aren't going their way yet? Why are they so uncomfortable?
It's interesting because they're being very consistent at getting 15th, back-to-back 15th places, 2-3 eliminations. I mean, it's interesting. Week 1 of the Div Cups, they got 4th, but then it was kind of downhill after that. I mean, the zone was a bit far from them, but game 1, it was incredibly close. I'm wondering if it's kind of like a surge issue, if it's a chem issue, but I mean, we should have a bit higher, you know, placements coming through from these teams. The expectations are there, Mini. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, after game 1, we were sort of thinking, you know, maybe the zone pulled too close for them, they couldn't do that long rotate that we broke down at the beginning of the day. That zone pull far away, not a different in terms of performance. They did exactly the same. So still some questions to be answered for those guys. Yeah, tough to exactly point an exact finger as to why right now.
I just looked down at my desk and I was suddenly reminded that we've basically not seen Seti and Rax, and I am looking more at these and going, do post-it notes work well with condiments? Should I be serving this up to myself with a side of mayonnaise at the end of the show to God? What's going on?
Yeah. Kind of came back together as a duo. The placements haven't really been there, but I mean, just the hype, I'm hoping it can kind of come back. They're not performing too well. It's going down 20th kind of in both matches, so they're struggling to make it to that end game. They're gonna have to change something up, maybe.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we hadn't seen them too much in set lobbies. Something that I was looking at with them, they haven't necessarily been winning enough of those fights, getting a little bit frenzied there in the end game. A little bit of a disconnection in that duo right now.
Yeah, I really need these boys to work things out as we head into game 3. All is not lost as we head over to 11-2 in Jakarta. By Jakarta.
It's okay, Frankie. It's the double T threat after all. But 11, the important matter has been determined. The thing is, we've got a lot of our bigger name teams that are definitely struggling in terms of the leaderboard, and consistency might become a little bit more out of reach as the day extends onwards if they're not able to make something happen here now at the half.
No, I agree with that very much. That makes sense. I think it's a great point. Look, I think they start to run out, and so you're right. I think for a lot of teams, after this game is when I hit the panic button, right? Some of the teams you've seen struggle off sport, Mr. Savages, the Taysons. After this game, we really got to start to hit the panic button and figure out what can we do to guarantee us a win in one of the remaining games. And so hopefully here in game 3, we will see the turnaround for some of our lesser fortune teams. Game number 3 of Heat 2 begins. See, we're right back towards Squibbly Shores because we want to see whether it's going to be a 3-0 sweep against Tayson and Ghost. All the hype we were given, Ghost, we've not got to see him really play. We don't get to watch and see whether Tayson is still at it. And this time around, are the drops any better, Taco? I don't know.
I mean, Tayson's getting lit up from elsewhere. Oh, no. Tayson and Ghost definitely getting the worst end of that exchange, but at least they've managed to touch down. Medkit is huge here right now for Ghost and Tayson. They have the opportunity now to just kind of breathe and then wait.
Yeah, and the silver lining there is regardless of them getting tagged up in the sky, they are alive. They get to survive. They get a moment to breathe in this lobby. Every single other fight we've seen between them has been a quick 50-50 where they got wiped in seconds. This time around, they get to try and get a load out and try and fight their way back into this game and in this tournament. Fighting happening around the rest of the lobby as well. We've seen names falling, players dropping. And in the case of Zany over here at Boulevard, there's been a lot of action towards the Boulevard. A lot of the time we've been watching it take place in the Storm a couple zones later. So we'll see what these guys cook up now. Already picked up one. And Iggy is going to have to watch from the sidelines.
Not liking the current overview, though, for Ein, because you're relying pretty heavily on the Twin Hammer shotties of all things and a healthy duo surrounding the area, but Country Jew, they're looking to duke it out right now with Fernek. And Jew looking for a separate angle here. Fernek, no shield, so just a couple of shots or one good shotgun blow should be enough. But Fernek just overwhelmed by Jew and Country.
Nice little pre-fire there. Bit too much firepower for them to deal with in that moment. Country and Jew, both incredibly talented players and finding a bit of rhythm, finding a bit of momentum today as well. Definitely been one of the better teams we've gotten to watch today. See that.
We are already, I was going to say some developments though of teams kind of shifting across the map. Just based off the duos that we've had, you know, getting their outright win and teams looking to take over where they were at, essentially. But for Velo and Mr. Savage, Levin, I mean, they've got to get the ball rolling here.
Absolutely. Got to figure things out. Got to try and catch up. I mean, you mentioned at the start of the day, Taco. After he won, the amount of names we saw miss out, who are now going to have to play in last chance. There were already a bunch of really big name teams who had missed out completely on making the Heat stage as a whole, and so the last chance was already stacked. I would hate for this heat to contribute to that even more.
Fortunately, I do feel like there's always going to be at least one or two upsets when you're looking at EU as a whole and to trend upwards. As much as you love them, as much as you want to root for them, everybody has to essentially muster up their own strength and look to break past, you know, the strength that they've had in the past and been able to rely on, and just see, can they kick it up another notch? For Mr. Savage and Bello, that does seem to be their only option currently, because 6 points heading into this third lobby. It's a little bit grim, but they're definitely not out of it just yet. I mean, one really strong placement finish, a couple of eliminations. We've seen how quickly that can catapult the team up the leaderboard too.
Absolutely. And they're going to need that, right? Historically, Savage has always been a player who, you know, commentating him over the years, it's always come down to momentum, right? Once he gets into that good groove, a lot of the times the games keep rolling, but it can be hard to get that fire started. So they're going to need a spark, and that might just be Velo in this game. Nice little bit of movement there. Quicks.
They are just absolutely running it down right now onto Masters. Crete and Quicks just doing what they can. See if they can get the cutoff and even take the Ascender upwards, but Quicks on the lower round. Crete overhead. Now just looking, Frida not going to work there for Masters, and sure enough, that is going to be the closure towards this engagement that they needed. Kiro, Apple, they've got Extra Tito on their sights. Don't see Dora anywhere nearby. Extra Tito maybe just hoping that he can convene with this duo, but does appear as though he's in a solo situation, but out of the pan, straight into the fire, potentially realizes there was another duo the other end of that cliff, so he'll opt to try and pan towards the river. But Kira and Apple, they are determined to chase down these extra 3 points for the elimination.
And I hope he doesn't give up. He's got him so low. Like Shasito doing his best to hide. Oh dear. They know where he is now though. They should know he is right down beneath here. You can see them looking at it. Whoop. They will close it out.
48 points though right now for Apple and Kiro. Would expect this is a team, yeah, they're looking for a victory royale, I feel. And when you think about Apple's recent success in the Solo Victory Cup, 3 for 3, I think that is definitely a player capable of turning any lobby into a win. Men and Floki just continue to kind of find themselves in these positions of just looking to lurk around vending machine, which makes sense. We know how ideal having heals, especially ones that you can depend on to play Storm, it makes a big difference for the later rotations. But 27 points, that is tough seeds.
Again, once we get to this point in the competition, right, if you don't have a good game 3, we start looking at teams as like it's win or nothing, right? Either you win the game or you're in the LCQ. What's having to be rebooted isn't the best sign for this team's fortunes moving forward. Again, they are still within range of calling on consistency, but a bad game here.
Latte Landing has, even though it doesn't seem like there's been a team directly pressuring them, it does seem like they've been cut off from their surge opportunities. And knowing that Walks was rebooted, almost curious to see whether or not they'll be able to do enough recovery to not have to deal with the woes of surge later on, because we've seen teams that haven't had to go through those above that damage threshold later on in these zones. O'Reilly and Reason, they're nestled in a pretty solid position right now. Consistency has definitely been the name of the game for these two so far.
Absolutely. They've been incredibly impressive. Obviously, Solo Clutch and Reason was the one that ended up surviving the longest between the two, but it wasn't long enough for them to have been too satisfied, I imagine. So hopefully this time around, both of them will be out fighting and thriving together.
5-5-5 scenario here, though, for Ju and Kantri. And for Kantri underneath, I mean, he's holding his own pizza, right? Like, this is a team that's certainly not struggling for heals by any means. But things are quiet over by Painted Palms. I think so many duos are just... You can spot these surge bases off in the distance. So that's naturally going to adjust how teams choose to kind of rotate around.
Absolutely. They've got to have their routes planned. You obviously will have an understanding of where teams like to base up around you. And so you plan around that, figure out the most optimal routes. What do we have going on here at Riptide? We obviously have seen Jewel and Strat take these fights in the zone and find success from them. It's going to be really up to Jewel to try and do it alone here. Really pull off the 1v2.
Yeah, I mean, this has just been the full-on recovery tour for them. We saw Iron earlier on over by Battlewood as a solo, so the fact that he had to head all the way towards Riptide to play for the reboot, I think that drew the attention of Jewel and Strapped initially, but now they might have put off. Not going to be able to hold out. Iggy now looking to see if he can save his teammate from being fully eliminated here, but Jewel is just dancing around the boxes. No way for Iggy to close out these shots, and now third party overhead. Jewel will finally be eliminated here, but the damage has already been done. Iggy is so incredibly low, and with another team keeping tabs on the action over by Riptide, it's going to be difficult for them to actually press outwards. Plus, they took so much damage. The net surge cannot be all that beneficial.
I'm glad they won that fight, because had they not, we would have had to have an uncomfortable conversation. You can't be losing that one, and thankfully they don't, but it was a lot closer than it needed to be. Props to Jewel there for making it tough, and again, making the rest of their game tough now for them to recover and get back into the game. It will continue to be a journey. Glove and Ghosty, one of the big surprises, I think, of this heat so far as how they've been able to perform in that last game especially.
All they're really trying to do is see if they don't lose that rhythm throughout the course of today's matches, because it's one thing to get off to a hot start, but you have to make sure that you're also finishing strong in this type of competition, especially when so many more surprise factors begin to play a part here because of those teams, like we mentioned, that don't have the consistency. But the lurk play from Nazix and Lovero, this time it will be a success for them. Clapsy eliminated, killed, fighting for his life, but Lovero also taken down in response here. Gil trying to see if he can bring down Nazix with it, but a little bit of a standstill, a little bit of a pause. Nazix and Lovero, what I thought was initially just going to be an outright success. I mean, they were not expecting this bite back from Kjeld, and he is holding his own.
We obviously saw just how much they struggled in that last game. On the receiving end on a lot of eclipse, it felt like, but we'll forget that and hope they can try and make something out of this one. Much better position as far as Surge goes compared to last game. And so if you can get Clapsy up, maybe there'll be something they can do to save face a bit here. Deep into the storm. They'll go.
A little bit of a look back into where the success was. Lovero just full-on tunnel visioning there. Just comes back, fight him in the end, but sometimes that's just the way things go. Can't really fault them for wanting to just close things out very quickly. I mean, how often do we witness third party coming into effect whenever you're taking just slightly too long with some of these box fights? So makes sense.
Ooh, okay. I was interested in where these two are at. For people who are just tuning in now, we're looking at Ghosty and Tayson, who has his name as Luka Doncic right now, paying homage to his Slovenian countrymen. And they have off spawn in the first two games, not being able to rack up any points whatsoever. And here in game 3, finally getting an opportunity to put some points on the board. And so they're going to have to make it count. They have to make sure this game and the next two after are filled with points.
it's always opportunity for that bounce back, and this would definitely be the lobby to go for it. A lot of trouble right now, though, for mates. Acme, but only so many places left for them to run, especially when you find yourself underneath the damage threshold. I mean, they have to connect some shots for Surge. We're gonna have to just take whatever shots they can find, but Loki, Clement, similar position. All of these teams just kind of settling into the same layer of congestion, forcing fights against each other, looking for angles, whatever they can find, but it's going to be Floki and Clement who just barely managed to come out on top, still so low, and they're just going to wait. Mates is getting desperate now, just trying to break into their box, and that makes it all too easy for Floki to line up the finishing shots. But still, only 42 above, so...
Yeah, Flokito doing his best there. These two, again, if you've been watching the EU for a long time, you'll know just how proficient they can be in box fights, right? Always great when they have players running at them in those positions, the composure, the experience to know when to edit, when to interrupt people's momentum and their rhythm. And it was a great showcase of that there.
They're hitting the overhead. Let's get a little bit of siphon now off of Nazix, but he's still below on the overall Surge threshold. Trying to see if he can get some additional tags from players looking to rotate in off those overdrive grenades. 4 above now. Chiquito will be able to just try and send himself forward, get a little bit more towards that edge of zone. It's just tough here, 11, because he's going to be forced to drop all the way down, try to be out of sight, out of opportunity to recuperate his shields to being full, but he's still gonna have to find another refresh, and as a solo, that's just so difficult to do.
I think the silver lining for him is that with the materials he has and the nades, you know, he can't go down at this point in the game, right? He's got to stay in there a bit longer. But just being below, that becomes a whole different story. Especially when you have such a distance to rotate. Yeah, man, I think our friend Kiro here has been in much better situations. Let's just say that. His best options for maybe getting some damage, both rotating away as well. And so it feels like everything is out of reach for him. He's going to look for a shot here, potentially. He sees players in wood, but the opportunity doesn't find itself. Can't wait this one out, Kiro. You gotta hit some shots. He's got some of the best aim in the region, and he showcases it there. It ticks him just above. Right now, Taco.
But even with being above, he's still gonna be forced into yet another enough. Coming on top, unless he can get the opening shot here. Zyron just immediately sent scrambling, but Kiro, he needs to close it out. Perfect timing, and that right there could be the difference between a handful of placements, but Kiro instead gets cut short on the runaway. Unfortunate scenes, but he did try his best. At the end of the day, it just breaks down that way.
Yeah, ultimately, it took him a bit too long to get there, right? There was already too many players positioned in zone, and that's just an easy shot to take at a player still fighting in the storm. Watts and Vanya, they've recovered their game and are looking in a much stronger position. Watts with all that gold loot in his inventory, you want to see him fragging out, doing what he does best. Tayson and Ghost, they're trying to force the issue because they're down on Surge, Taco.
Down on Surge, down on leaderboard points, and now down a teammate. Ghost will be dropped, but a great response out of Tayson is going to mean that he might actually be able to go for the revive. He knows that the zone is closing in, but the damage, it's just not enough. He'll have to forfeit that opportunity for saving Ghost and instead just play this out as a solo. But how many points can you claim?
Tayson, it's time to solo clutch. How many times have we seen him in positions like this, and how many times has he delivered the goods, Taco? Does he have one more in him? It's right now, and it is the time to do it. Tayson, you need to have a big game if you want to see yourself in the finals next weekend. Pixie and Swizzy, we've seen a big clutch from Pixie last game. Swizzy still in it, holding on as far as HP goes. So they'll need a bit of Siphon to get those whites up. And this is not looking good now for Tayson. 11 HP, no way to get himself up other than a Siphon. He has to connect with big damage and soon, especially with the materials dwindling.
He's gonna keep taking looks at some of the healthier ones, just looking to try and claim front side of zone. Mr. Savage and Velo, meanwhile, they've also been clawing their way through this lobby from the low ground, backside of zone. They recognize there's a lot of teams rotating by them, but they don't want to take shots just yet. They're gonna look to play their pizza play for a little bit of placement here. Tayson, overdrive effect just not gonna be enough, and he will be shut down. Even for the best, that hamstring just continuing to haunt him and slow him down. But Swizzy, Pixie, up above. They've got a firm control of height for the time being, and it looks like Pixie is just trying to take full advantage. Some of these players overhead. Khan immediately punished. Just one overdrive too far up, faded as a solo now, left to contend, and it's just not going to be enough. Pixie has been on a ramp.
In the lobby right now, they have the understanding, they have the awareness of anybody trying to take height off of them, and they come prepared. Everybody else belief now needs to hope these two slip up because they are looking primed to take one of those final spots.
Velo, deep backside of zone though, and he is just waiting. A little bit more pizza, a little bit more time, whatever placements he can muster up. That's exactly what him and Savage need at this point. But he's gonna need to find some big shots, refresh, eliminations, and he delivers. Mythic Pump doing everything for Velo right now. He's got to continue charging his way forward. Pull back though, gonna save him. Towards front side, more materials just laying around. Perfect timing, but with so many other teams looking to clash inside these mid layers, Swizzy and Pixie are just smothering the lobby, forcing it to collapse on itself.
So many players stuck in builds that are not theirs and struggling to find any real space in this moving zone. Velo, he's done a good job to stay alive, but with so much time he has left in the game, when these guys start to drop down from height, it just gets that much scarier for everybody now believe. Ju and Cantry have been one of the strongest looking teams in this lobby, but even they might face a big problem if Swizzy and Pixie come knocking.
And all Zany and Burke are looking to do right now is play spoiler. They've got a frontside position, but who's going to be the first one to step up? Krahawa taken down by Frozy. Now Pixie, Swizzy, they just continue hammering away at the lobby. Everyone's stuck inside of these lower layers. It's all up to Swizzy and Pixie to just keep shutting them down. Burke now left as a solo. Frozy still running around with AZ at the backside, but Ju gonna send himself upwards. They've got to try and make their way over the hill, but Pixie will actually be taken out. Cantry with a little bit of life here, and he finds another onto Swizzy. The lobby has just turned itself upside down now. Cantry and Ju, they're looking to send themselves to the Major 1 finals here. All they've got to do is take out Ifrozy, but Ifrozy plays spoiler. Ju has fallen. It's all up to Cantry. Can he do it yet again? For the most part, and Cantry, not enough HP, but he turns it around. Ju, one more time. Is that now 1 versus 1? Cantry on the other side of this wall, and Cantry finds it. Cantry just better. The moment that he needed to deliver, and that is everything right now for Cantry and Ju.
That was disgusting. He should never win in that scenario. Everything was stacked against him. The HP was low. 2 healthy players down beneath. He had already hit 2 crazy shots to put his team in a position to win. I said they might have a problem taking down Swizzy and Pixie. He proved me wrong. Then he proved everyone else wrong again. Cantry and Ju deserve their spot in the finals. Frankie, Taco. Oh my God. My brain. I can't. I'm just lost. I'm lost for words. I can't.
The problem is, Levin, that I also melted in that that moment with the wall jump at the end of that 1v2. That was absolutely wild, Miniminder. And the great thing is, Country and Dew, they deserve this so much. They were second on the consistency leaderboard going into this game. Qualifying for the finals was inevitable, but what a way to do it.
I mean, are we playing zero builds here at the end? Like, nobody had any mats. It was all down to aim, and that shot from Cantry, it was almost a game of chess. They were both on either side of the wall. That was, like, such perfectly played from Cantry. And when Ju goes down there early on, you just think, yeah, maybe it's not their time. They've done well. They've put in a good shift here. Go next. Cantry from someone that has what it takes in those moments to find the shot to cast, so that is unreal.
Yeah, what a way to close it. I mean, it was interesting because Cantry had less HP. He was a sliver left, and he still took the jump and the shot. He still had the confidence to hit that big pump, and after it connected, his ticket to the finals was secured. You talk about the consistency. They deserved it from how they've been playing throughout the day, but I'm not going to lie, I did not think that was going their way. Like, the way the switch-ups were happening in these last moments, you see they had height, they got... I don't even know how Juvok got taken out there in the last moment, but Cantry from nothing to everything closed it out.
Look at that first shot, and this is the angle I want to see here, actually. Wait, who's gonna go first? It was just zero builds, and then it was the final shot. I love it. I love moments like that in Fortnite. You just don't often get them to that degree, and for this level of reward and results. So, you know, super happy for the guys, and super happy that they get clutch out there.
Guys, want to keep the games coming. What, 2 more for you today. So we're all going to learn how to speak again during the break, and then we come back, and then we will deliver some more analysis.
stunning 1v2 versus Azat and iFrozzy. Plenty more to come because we've got 2 more games coming your way shortly. But before we get there, Swizzy and Pixie, it really did look like we were finally going to see a victory royale go their way mini minor, but they just weren't. I mean, they were, but they weren't able to achieve their final goal.
Yeah, I mean, looking at their points, they'd be really happy with their performance in this game. Of course, they've already pretty much qualified now to the major finals by consistency, so maybe it begs the question, did they even want to win that game? I don't know. Maybe you can make your own mind up about that. But no, another really good game from these guys, another great performance up on height. We spoke about it at the beginning of the day, how prominent these guys can be when it comes to the high ground. We know what both of them can do, and then when it came down to these games, they're kind of proving it. They answered a lot of the questions that we had to Carter, showcasing exactly why they are the first and second from our last global championships.
Yeah, I mean, this is a duo that we don't have to worry about. Top of the consistency standings, dominating every single match today. Obviously, they haven't closed one out, but it's not their worry currently. I mean, they're doing what we expected them to, and I'm happy that it's happening here in FNCS.
To us, Swizzy and Pixie, and they're definitely lighting up the Heat 2 lobby. And you can see there the standings so far. Already qualified via their golden tickets, their victory royales. Cantry, Jubot, Syaz, and Scary Sean cheating Yanis. But will Swizzy and Pixie be the next ones to pick up that ticket? We'll soon find out. Interesting to see some names we're not used to. I know we did say that Heat 2 maybe isn't as stacked as Heat 1, but we're definitely seeing some impressive performances from some of these newer names. For you, though, I'm wondering why Vox and Vanya aren't capitalizing still. We did see them make it to the end game, though, Takata. So do you think they've fixed their issues enough to actually make it to the final 2?
So compared to game 1, they got another zone pull that was close to their drop spot, and I honestly thought that this was going to be the game. They were primed up in terms of positioning. Once those zones started closing, they actually pulled that zone that's into Storm and ended up having height originally. They were good on mats, they were good on surge, they were good on loot, and they even were able to hold. For some reason, they ended up losing it. They couldn't hold on. Maybe they just didn't get a refresh in time, weren't able to recuperate those materials needed to hold on to the high ground. But anyways, you know, they finished top 9 in the end. It's the best performance that they've had today. It's bumped them 6 placements up on the leaderboard. They're now in that top 10. So I'm hoping that this is just the start of their match. They're able to close it out.
Yeah, remember Wox went down, didn't he, early on in that game? They had to then go get that reboot. Kind of sets your entire game back, kind of, you know, makes it so that you're late to a lot of those rotations, those materials you're having to invest a lot earlier. So it didn't seem like they could ever really recover from that, and you're always playing a bit of catch-up, but they're still not doing too bad, so not bad for these guys.
Let's scroll down. Let's see pages 2 and 3 to see who really does need to catch up or at least get themselves a victory royale despite the odds being stacked against them. Interesting to see Dandy Puzo and Werix, they weren't able to capitalize on their early promise in the Heat. But also, shockingly, Mr. Savage and Bello, they are really needing to have a solid game. And let's face it, the odds were stacked against them because they have such a contested drop spot, mini minor.
Yeah, they do, but this is nice to see them making this end game right here. It's actually boosted them in the standings quite a lot. They got an 8th place here in this last game, and from what they were trying to do, it seemed like they were actually trying to play the Storm in that sort of 9th zone. They chucked down a couple of... To me, it seemed like they did it too early. The zone pullback did come in the 10th zone, and that's why Velo was actually able to stay alive. Lots of weight on his shoulders, of course, as well. Trying to make his first grand finals. Not easy to clutch up in those situations, so big ups to him. But just seemed like they played that heal off and that Storm a little bit too early before that pullback came through.
It's really interesting to see new names, as I mentioned earlier. Burke and Zaney, they're 2 guys I'm not really familiar with, but they've been so consistent across the 3 games we've had so far. Takata, are you familiar with these names?
You know what? I haven't seen too much of them, especially in this season, but in terms of them getting literally top 10 in every single match, today, 4th, 7th, 4th, almost top 5 in every match. They're right behind Swizzy and Pixie in terms of qualifying already through consistency. They really have not much more to do in these next matches, and honestly, I'm quite impressed.
I'm impressed, but I want to see what they can do in a grand final against Europe's best of the best. 2 more games remain, though, before we find out who makes it. So let's head back to Taco. and Level 2K.
Thank you very much, Frankie. Look, the games are not disappointing. They are entertaining, and I feel like it's only going to keep getting better as we see more desperation from some of these teams lower down in the standings. Taco, you're going to have to pull out everything if you want to be playing next weekend.
Without a doubt. I mean, we know that there are only 2 lobbies remaining. Game 4 is where we're really going to see some of these teams having to overcome the amount of pressure that is beginning to be placed on all of their shoulders. If you are not already within that top 10 of the consistency, well, this might be your best shot to get it done because Game 4 underway. What I'm really waiting to see, though, Levin, is whether or not Tayson and Ghost are going to be able to go on the recovery tour of a lifetime. We saw them finally touch down on Squibbly in the last lobby, albeit it was with a little bit of woes behind it since there was a third-party intervention kind of tagging away, chipping away at their HP, but we did see them at least make it to the end game. It's just about pushing all the way through. And that's where things start to become rather complicated because they are not the only team that is looking for that same kind of mentality.
It feels like they're scared. Look at the drops here, right? They don't even want to fight them at the sort of gas station. They're looking to swerve and dodge into the POI, and there's players taking shots at them. And so already starting with an HP disadvantage. Thankfully, those players will take shots at Xterry as well. And so hopefully they can recover things now. A 49th for 49th and a 19th is not what they were expecting out of today thus far, but we've seen people overcome bigger hurdles with 2 games left. And so it's going to require an all-time performance from the 2, but definitely talented enough players to make something happen. Zany and Burke, incredibly consistent today. I believe they are second when it comes to consistency standings. And so one of the teams who right now is looking very comfortable when it comes to securing a consistency place for the major finals. And a team that a lot of people are going to have to learn a bit more about because definitely have looked better than what maybe people would have given them credit for.
I think it's really just the momentum, too. They've been consistently contested by Iggy and Ein, and yet have come out on top practically every single lobby so far, I want to say. And with that in mind, I mean, it's such a huge catalyst, I think, to a player's confidence. But now, Ghost, just at the perfect timing, managing to close out on a knock there against Adapted. But Tayson just dropped so incredibly low. Both him and Ghost are just not able to really duke it out with the HP. But Ghost does get the siphon, finds the body there, but he had to split away momentarily from Tayson. So now Xterry will also have the opportunity to kind of recuperate his shields, too. This is a tough spot to be in. This is Major 1 Finals, avoiding last chance qualifier, potentially on the line here right now for Ghost and Tayson. You can see Ghost, he's looking to see if he can find an angle on this shot. Through some of his old builds, but Xterry is not going to make it easy for him. Ghost with the jump overhead and the crushing finish there now out of Xterry, but they've been collapsed on. Teams witnessing what was taking place elsewhere. Zoomer and Fury fully at the winning point.
It didn't matter who came out on top of that. They were bound to fail with the third party coming through. A disastrous outcome for Tayson and Ghost in particular, who again will be on many people's prediction boards to qualify. They only have 2 games to muster up enough points to maybe squeeze their way into the top 10 most consistent teams. It is going to be a massive mountain to climb. Crete has his own mountain to climb now in a 2v1 here. That doesn't look too favorable.
Oh, the worst part as well for Crete is just knowing that they are so much closer in terms of consistency. 65 points, but V's gonna be taken out. Faded and Khan have rolled up to the vicinity now. They're a little bit local, but Faded will be sent the opposite direction off that overdrive. A little bit awkward here, but it's not going to deter them too heavily. They are still looking to chase this one out. They know just how weak Masters actually is, but it's going to be intercepted right now from Clapsy and killed. Faded, Khan, now they're contending with an entirely new duo here, and one that is healthy enough to definitely push back. So that'll cause them to have a little bit of a second thought for continuing this engagement.
Yeah, and he's wanted to maybe close things out quickly. Specs and Miruz, we've seen them fighting defensively to some success, and we might see it again here. Swizzy and Pixie, you don't ever want to bite off more than you can chew. Swizzy will do well to keep Pixie up and get him away. Can he create the space to get the revive off? Specs and Miruz not getting too greedy and just backing off a bit, but that might be their demise. Pixie does get taken out, and so now Swizzy forced alone in between two teams. He is truly stuck in between a rock and a hard place. He has to hope that these guys forget about him and just allow the time to pass by. That did not go how I was expecting it to, Taco.
If anything, it might have even indirectly helped Swizzy out a bit with that third-party presence, but Forge and Nagi, they're not going to stick around, and surely Miruz expects what kind of contenders those two can be. Checking in, though, to see what actually happened. Faded and Con, they're punctual. They're willing to put an end to everything that they start, and the fact of the matter is that's just another 3 elimination points that they can add to the count. Extracito, though, alongside Dora, they're looking to go big or go home realistically. These lobby points, every elimination, every single placement is going to be the difference maker. We saw how much of a nail biter it came down to in yesterday's heats. How so many teams were able to actually overlap and overcome in the final moments there to just squeeze themselves into that top 10 for the consistency side of things. But for Dora and Extracito, it's only Cora that remains. Misha having already been eliminated pretty early on, but Overdrive Grenades just sending them a little bit more scattered here. Or trying to buy some time, but that's going to be the last Overdrive. Now it's all about, can you tuck yourself away in the build long enough, just delay. A lot of pizza slices here, at least, but both sides being aggressive. Dora, though, not able to find the closing shots. Fortunately for Dora, Extracito is right there. Back him up, but a little bit messier than what they would have hoped for.
Yeah, almost gave the 2v1 away.
Just so surprised. Swizzy and Pixie are able to get the successful reboot opportunity, so that is a solid turnaround. O'Reilly and Reason, though, they've done a great job. We touched on it a little bit in the last Lobby 11 in terms of Reason and O'Reilly just looking to play largely for the consistency metrics, and while they are still inside that placement area, it's a little bit too close for comfort. They want to try and see if they can further overcome, see if they can continue to build up on that leaderboard section. I believe all they really need to do is stay true to their methods, because so far it has worked out relatively well for them. Checking back in, though, Mr. Savage and Bello, that solo clutch out of Bello to turn up with the 8th place finish. It was a huge difference maker in their leaderboard standing.
Yeah, I mean, again, now if you're a Savage fan, you're gonna hope that they can really just squeeze as much out of the rest of these games as possible. Time is ticking away.
It's all going to come down to the wire, though. I think that this is really the point where some of these veteran mentalities, help settle some of the nerves here from Bello. He looked relatively cool, calm, and collected in that endgame, despite the fact that he was in such a rough position. So I do think that the chemistry has been built up relatively well in their short time of doing together.
Yeah, look, they've had some impressive cups, right, where they look like the real deal, a team that can, contend to qualify for the summit. But if you can't make it to the final through heats, LCQ is not going to be any easier.
Vanya and Walks really just trying to establish a little bit of building side control, claiming a lot of space right now, kind of keeping Kaisers and Gonzo at bay too. The main thing now for Kaisers and Gonzo that they're going to have to take into account is it won't be easy to rotate off without Walks and Vanya potentially moving first, because you never want to get pieced up along the way.
Yeah, I feel like for these guys, there's a lot to prove. In the case of Gonzo, especially, but he has looked good so far in 2026. Newer talent emerging onto the scene. Seti and Rax. Much more to be desired if you're a fan of these two. And for Seti to miss the finals would be his first final missed since 2021. Wow. Chapter 2, Season 6. That was my second season on the broadcast back then. I was a new up-and-coming analyst next to Resub, eh?
Well, now that you're playing Mr. Worldwide, you know, doing the whole hosting, into the analyst, into the casting, when are we gonna see you back in the playing? You know, you might as well take the player side of things too. Just go fully on board.
Trust me, nobody wants to see that, Taco.
I want to see that.
Nobody wants to see that. We'll spare the viewers that sight.
You never want to cut yourself short there, mate. But look, Polish hat, Pepro, Kiruo, Trexer, just so many teams that have had issues. Hey man, I understand lurk plays are everywhere right now.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, you're gonna go for it if the opportunity is there. And they'll be patient enough to wait. I don't know if this bait is gonna work out for them though. They're trying to bait the mist here, and I feel like it's just not. Like I feel like Kido and Trexor, even if they came this way, it wouldn't be quite enough. Yeah, they pick it back up. I think they realize it's not happening. The footsteps disappeared. They realize they went in the other way onto the other side of Painted Palms.
This was still a pretty big commitment from this duo.
Ooh, hold on. They're moving in the right direction. Trexor might come to this side. Are they gonna get it? Oh, I hate watching these sometimes. I just, it's the anticipation. Go on.
Hey, they needed that one though. Kiruo eliminated. Now Trexer sent into a little bit of a panic here. This duo just continues trying to see what else they can gather. That's certainly going to help them in the surge department. And the 3 med kits to boot, because with Trexer and Kiruo having stuck around for so long, surely they had to have some form of white heals to be playing Storm in the first place.
It's good to see the patience paying off for them though.
Like this one though, multiple teams taking advantage of the healing from the cube. Machek and Pahawa though, they're gonna move off of Sandy's strip. Try to get some tags in along the way, but not gonna net anything just yet. Still fully aware of the fact that there are going to be other teams kind of trailing behind them, so still gotta be cautious with how you move into zone.
Pixie and Swizzy. They've been the most consistent team on the day that hasn't been able to pick up a win. And they looked in a good position to do it last game, but unfortunately, Cantry had something to say about that. But without him in the lobby, maybe, just maybe, this will be the game where they finally secure their position in the major finals.
There's probably multiple teams, at least in this heat, hoping that they find a victory royale, because all that means is a trickle-down effect, right? You have another team that's potentially pushed into that consistency placement quals potential, and that could be a huge difference maker here for that Major 1 Finals lobby. But the other benefit that Swizzy and Pixie had is just knowing that they've got enough points that even if they do get eliminated earlier than they would like to, I don't think that they're really at threat of losing their current position for quality.
Yeah, no, these guys are safe. They're going to qualify regardless of what happens. And so we'll see just how much of a spoiler they play to the rest of the lobby. We've seen some teams do that already. Cough, cough, heat one. And so let's see how much drama these guys can cause with how they choose to play the rest of these games. Down below on Surge though, so we're bigging them up. But they do have to put in some effort into this game if they want to stay in it for much longer.
Asking shall receive. Pixie, Swizzy, wasting no time. Getting some good tags in, but it's still, well, the Surge is definitely jumping for them as the rest of the lobby also continues to build on their net Surge, but Seti and Rax, they're starting to get a bit desperate here now. Shields fully down now for Seti. Rax is soon to follow. They can't get some more shots going. Surge is going to take them out before they even get a real fighting chance in this lobby. Seti just trying to chase down Specs. Miruz looking to just keep charging forward. Wants to get away from this lobby. They can smell the desperation clinging to Seti. And Rax, they continue chasing this one out. But Specs, he's incredibly low too. Rax, Seti, this might be their best chance to go for the refresh. They're going to need some Siphon to come into play here if they want to keep charging through this one. And Rax, Seti, they'll find one. Can they get the other? Because Rax, he still can't afford to take these ticks in Storm, and he's not going to be able to work his way into zone. Seti with the Siphon will be fine, but now he's left as a solo.
This is going to be tough. He needs to squeeze more points out of this game, but it's just not going to be an easy one. And now there's a player in his box. That is it for Seti and Rax. If you want to see them in the major finals, they're going to have to win game number 5. But let's see who wins game number 4 here. A fight for the pad up on the top of the mountain peak between Wox and Gonzo. Pixie and Swizzy on the other side of the zone, planning their rotation. In a good spot to take it though as well. They have the elevation advantage. Wox loses Vanya in this exchange at the top of the mountain for the launch pad. And so we've seen Vanya clutch to the attacker. We're going to have to see Wox do it now.
Wox is certainly capable of doing just that, but first wants to see if he can try and pinpoint some damage to just be able to focus exclusively on where he wants to send himself with this overdrive grenade. So far, no one's really revealed enough of themselves to really provide Wox an ample opportunity, but now Jewel, shot's just not going to hit though, and one more time, the Surge threshold just continues to climb a little bit further out of reach here. Up and down though, some shots will connect there for Wox on these later rotating duos. Shumich not going to be able to survive, and that is a great time for the knock to come through here for Wox, but of course, he can't afford to go for that body loot anytime soon. He's just going to choose to stay in this elevated position. As a solo, decent amount of material. Well, there is some serious opportunity here to clutch things out.
It's not a bad spot to be in whatsoever.